Well, hey everyone, happy Friday. We are back for a third installment of Q&A here based on the message from this past Sunday. Alyssa's joining us one more time. Today's question, what does it mean and look like for us individually and us as the church to be ready for Jesus to return? I'll jump right in with this. One of my favorite passages is I've been reading recently. I have a lot of favorite Great Commission passages, but this one has been really standing out recently, and it's Luke chapter 10. After this, the Lord appointed 72 others and sent them ahead of him, 2 by 2, into every town and place where he himself was about to go. He said to them, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Therefore, ask the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into his harvest." That's usually where we stop. But Jesus continues, and his next word is go, with an exclamation point. "I am sending you out like lambs surrounded by wolves." So there's a few things that I see there. If we're going to be ready for Jesus to return, we need to be doing the stuff that Jesus commanded us to do. And one of those things is to be going. He says, look, I'm going to send you out everywhere to places where I am about to go. Now, at that time, in that point in history, he was sending these disciples out, and he then was going to follow behind them. For us, I think it's still the same way. I mean, we're not going to go any place that Jesus isn't going to go and show up at. And so he still sends us out to places that he himself is going to go and show up. So I think that's number one. Then he says to them, look, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. So we have a problem here. There's a lot of people who I want to come to know me and my Father. The problem is that people aren't ready to go out and do it. He says, it's plentiful. The time is here. It's time to reap a harvest. We need to go. And he says, ask the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into his harvest, or harvest field. And then he says, for us to go. To me, if we're going to be ready for Jesus to return, we have to be about doing gospel work. We have to be out there as those who are sent to share the gospel with people. It just has to be. Thoughts?
I agree. I think when the question was first asked, my only gut response was Great Commission. Called to go out into the world. If we're not fulfilling that, then we're not fulfilling the command that Jesus gave all believers. And I think even to an extent, I would say every other instruction that Jesus gave throughout the Gospels to the believers comes out of the Great Commission. If you're abiding by the Great Commission, you will fulfill all those other things. I think one of my things that also stuck out to me was the biggest convicting point for me, because I'm human. I sin. We all do. Is always that question that kind of lingers in the back of my head is, if Jesus came back right now, what would he say? And I think that applies to the church as a whole too. If Jesus came back to New Life, came back to the world and looked at New Life right now, what would it say? What would he say? Not it. Jesus is a he. What would he say? So if you don't think there's a good answer there in response to that, then what more do you need to do? What more does the church need to do? We are the church. So what does each person need to take as their own responsibility in fulfilling the Great Commission in the way that God has laid out for them? And then one of the other things that kind of stuck out to me, and it kind of doesn't apply to this, but I'm just going to go with it anyway, is a verse that stuck out to me. I was reading through the book of Luke on a missions trip in 10th grade, and I came across a verse that became my life verse for my main verse for a couple of years, since it's not my life. Anyway, and it's Luke 17, 9 through 10, and it says, "He won't thank the slave because he did what he was told, will he? So you too, when you have done everything you were commanded to do, should say, we are slaves, undeserving of special praise. We have only done what is our duty." The two key words that stick out to me here are commanded to do and our duty. We are not going to receive anything more than the glory that God has promised us in heaven, yes, but we are called to do these things. They are commands that were given to us. It is our duty as believers and as the church to fulfill, like I said, the assortment of instructions that Jesus has given. So we shouldn't be looking as an above and beyond for us to be fulfilling the Great Commission and going out and sharing the gospel and making disciples and teaching and baptizing people. That should be our expectations in our everyday lives. And if we're not meeting that, then something's up.
My quick answer would be, if you're not doing what the two previous questions talked about, you're not going to be ready. So if you are not relying on God's power every moment of the day and you're doing things in your own strength, you're not going to be ready. And if you aren't going out and rubbing shoulders with unbelievers and teaching and making disciples, you're not going to be ready. If you're not praying, if you're not in the Word, if you are not just sacrificially living, you're not going to be ready. And that's what I would say.
Yeah. I think a lot of people think that Jesus is going to be happy if he returns and he finds them sitting in a church praying or worshiping. And not that those are bad things, right? I mean, that's what we're called to do that. But what does Jesus say will bring about the end? When will we know when the time has come?
When all have heard.
When everybody has heard. Well, they're not going to hear if we're just sitting in our church service. They're only going to hear when we're busy doing the work that he's called us to do, of making disciples and sharing the gospel. Hey, that's it for us this week. Tune in next Monday as we'll jump back in with some more questions based on Sunday's message. Take care.